Turning out to be a day where we're just about consolidating all of the gains that we've seen in the past couple of trading sessions. So the Nifty is just about flat at this point in time. But what stands out is the mid-cap index and the kind of outperformance that we've seen for the mid-cap index. In fact, on a week-to-date basis, the mid-caps have gained around over 3% odd. So let's see whether we manage to sustain or not.
Okay, I think, morning, there's some news flow coming in, and I'll be just looking at that.
Oh, that's actually a big negative which has come in, where the Supreme Court has put Fortis, the entire Fortis sale on hold. I don't know what this is basically based on. Maybe it's the Daiichi case and what's going on with that. But
was there an objection in the court?
There was obviously, I think, a parallel court case which was going on with regards to Daiichi. So I don't understand whether or not, Fortis would have been implicated in that, simply because the promoters had completely gotten out of the company entirely. So I don't see where exactly that issue would have come up. And from the government side, they had received all of the approvals to go ahead with the approval with the Fortis transaction. But I don't understand the context in terms of where this...
arbitration with Daiichi was going on in Singapore, right?
There's a parallel litigation which is going on in Singapore as well. But the Supreme Court, there was some litigation going on with regards to Daiichi, and I think Ashmit would be the right person to put this into context in terms of why exactly the Supreme Court has put Fortis Healthcare sale on hold entirely, and maybe it would be to possibly pay off Daiichi to a certain extent in terms of the assets and in terms of the kind of penalty that they were expected to be provided post the whole Ranbaxy scenario which took place with the Singh brothers. But the Singh brothers had completely exited Fortis. They do not have any sort of holding in Fortis. Their pledge shares were completely released, so there was no holding coming in from the Fortis brothers on this particular transaction. But maybe there would be some rationale from the Daiichi standpoint, which is possibly what the Supreme Court has ruled. But this is a clear negative. I mean, it's a clear negative for shareholders as well, because they were getting, IHH is a good company. It has a complete presence in terms of hospitals across Asia, and that would be a great company to, at least take Fortis forward and provide them the kind of liquidity that they need. But I don't have more details as of now.
So, I mean, look at the stock, of course, it's going down 8%. Daiichi basically had moved the Supreme Court, had moved a contempt plea against the Singh brothers in the Supreme Court. I mean, that's the last plea. I mean, in terms of, there are various cases going on, the NCLT, the Singapore arbitration, there was one going on in the Delhi High Court, and now the Supreme Court has put the entire sale on hold. Daiichi had essentially moved the Supreme Court alleging contempt of the court's verdict, and maybe this is in response to that. But for now, the verdict is clear. Supreme Court putting the entire process, the entire sale process on hold, the sale on hold. I think this is the background is the contempt plea, because the hearing for that, what I can see, was on the 13th of December.
We have Sriram Subramaniam joining in from InGovern. He can probably provide a more analyst perspective on this. We should probably get some lawyer reactions. But Sriram, just go ahead. What's your view in terms of the Supreme Court putting the Fortis sale on hold?
It is very unfortunate because it should be recognized that the Singh brothers owned only a part of Fortis. And if anything, they should be penalized and their shares should be confiscated, and nothing should go from the sale process to them. But to put the entire sale process on hold at this late stage, when the open offer has just started and etc., and IHH has already taken control, is very unfortunate. If anything, I mean, the court should have probably made such a ruling a few months ago. And
let me give you, Mr. Subramanian, let me just give you some more information. So the background is this. The Supreme Court had earlier on the 15th of February allowed banks and financial institutions to sell shares of Fortis Healthcare pledged with them on or before August 31st by the Singh brothers. That we all know. The court at that point had observed that there could be no fresh encumbrances created by the Singh brothers and others, and had directed maintenance of a status quo. Daiichi Sankyo went to the Supreme Court and said that the Singh brothers and India Bulls had created fresh encumbrances of nearly 1.7 million shares of the total 2.3 million shares that were left after the Supreme Court's order. So this, the order today comes in response to this particular violation which is being alleged by Daiichi. Ekta, you have more?
Yes, no, I don't have more. I just want to actually bring this point up with Sriram. Sriram, Fortis has suffered in terms of liquidity issues in the past 2 quarters. We've seen that come through in their numbers very clearly. We've seen the kind of pressure that they've seen on their balance sheet. Do you think that this is fundamentally going to impact their performance or maybe in terms of the near-term operational viability of the company?
Definitely, I would think IHH would sort of hesitate now to infuse any funds. If at all they have infused in the recent past, obviously that cannot be taken out. But any fresh infusions, even bankers who give working capital, etc., would be hesitant knowing the regulatory risk that is there now. So it is unclear as to what is the status or what is the way forward for Fortis at this juncture. If the entire sale process is put to this fund, then who are the IHH recognized as promoters or aren't they recognized? Whether the open offer which just opened a few days ago, whether that is to go ahead and take place, because SEBI as a regulator is also sort of overseeing that open offer process. So it's very unclear as to what is the status of the company and how it will function in the near-term future.
I think we got Mr. Sandeep Parekh also joining in to throw some light on this. Sandeep, does come as a surprise, the court taking a hard stance on this and this putting the sale on hold. Any thoughts? This is in response to a contempt plea filed by Daiichi Sankyo on the issue of creating further encumbrances on the remaining shares held by the Singh brothers. And that is what Daiichi Sankyo alleged in court, and the court seems to agree. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think there's been enough kind of evidence which has been presented to the court to show that there are things going behind the scenes which are not all kosher. And I think that therefore the court has taken a harsh view. And I think rightly so, because, I think the Singh brothers have done kind of too much mischief over the years and trying to shortchange Daiichi and its efforts. So I think it's a good move.
Sandeep, just hold on. We're coming back to you. We have Ashmit with us to put this news into context for us. Ashmit, go ahead. What exactly has the Supreme Court said?
Well, the apex court view at this point appears to be that there have been prima facie enough concerns raised by way of this Daiichi contempt application. Keep in mind that earlier in the earlier Supreme Court orders, a very clear direction had been given that the shareholding of the Singh brothers held via RHC needs one that is already free of encumbrances should be kept that way. Status quo should be maintained. The contention of Daiichi appears to be that fresh encumbrances have been created in favor of India Bulls. Now, that is the concern. That appears to be undisputed in terms of the facts of the case, and that given that they are undisputed and given that it is a known fact that after the Supreme Court order, fresh encumbrances were created on the shares of the Singh brothers in favor of India Bulls, the apex court as of right now has deemed it fit to pass interim orders to protect the interests of Daiichi. It has gone ahead and issued interim orders that at least as far as the Fortis IHH deal is concerned, at least the portion of the transaction that is still awaited. On that, the apex court has issued a stay order that transaction as of right now cannot proceed. Now on this, what we understand, the apex court has also issued a notice to India Bulls, to the Singh brothers, as well as to Fortis. Now keep in mind that one key aspect that has repeatedly been coming up are Fortis' submissions before various courts, before the Supreme Court, before the Delhi High Court as well, the case that's pending there, where Fortis has repeatedly said that they have absolutely no more linkages with the Singh brothers, that they have a very, very minuscule shareholding, that they are in no way administering or controlling the company in any shape or form, and that they should be not held liable for actions of the Singh brothers. That's, of course, their submissions. They're likely to appear again at the date of the next hearing and make that submission once again. But for now, a bit of a setback, the apex court making clear that Fortis IHH transaction cannot proceed further.
So, Ashmit, when is the next date of hearing, or what happens next according to you and what you're picking up?
Well, we're still awaiting more details as to the next date of hearing that we will get with a copy of the order. But as of right now, what would fall now, what follows the issuance of a notice is that all the parties come on board and seek to make their submissions before the apex court. The key submission to watch for, of course, will be Fortis. They have been arguing at length before the Delhi High Court that they have little or no connection with the Singh brothers, that the Singh brothers are not on the board, they're not exercising any control on the functioning of the company, and that there is no linkage. And that is the argument they have been putting across in Delhi High Court successfully so far, because the Delhi High Court has not issued a stay. We'll have to wait and watch for Fortis to come back here, approach the apex court. Now, Justice Gogoi's led bench is the one hearing it, and they will have to approach them and again press that same argument that as of right now, given the shareholding, given that there's no board seat to either the Singh brothers or their nominees, it makes little or no sense to have Fortis held accountable for Singh brothers contempt. So that is an argument that they're likely to push forth. Of course, we'll continue updates as and when they move the apex court.
Okay, Ashmit.
Just a quick one. Ashmit, you said a notice has been issued to India Bulls as well. Is that correct?
Well, that was India Bulls was one of the respondents as far as this matter was concerned. The Singh brothers, the India Bulls as well as Fortis. So notice has been issued by the apex court to all the stakeholders, ensuring that all the parties are heard before the apex court passes any final direction.
Okay, all right, Ashmit. Thanks very much for putting all of this into context for us. So let's see what the Supreme Court does henceforth. But like Ashmit said, and he made a very relevant point, that the promoters do not have any sort of connection with Fortis anymore. They're not on the board. They do not own shares, or maybe there are minimal shares that they hold in Fortis, and they're not operationally connected to Fortis at all. In fact, the IHH members have been inducted into the board of Fortis. So there is absolutely no past history of old board members even being relevant on the current Fortis board. But Sandeep, I just want to take that point forward with you. There's so much which has already taken place with the IHH, the IHH transaction. They're already on the board. They've already probably taken over operations to a certain extent. They're already making some amount of decisions. In that context, what exactly happens now that the Supreme Court has put the sale on hold?
So I'll just make a quick comment because I need to leave. Obviously, I think everything kind of goes into a stay situation, and they'll have to kind of wait till the Supreme Court again allows a particular sale or not. So I think things will kind of stay stuck for some time at least.
They would. So there would be a halt on the open offer?
Seems like that. Again, I don't know the details, but seems like that.
Okay. All right, Sandeep, thanks very much for joining in, and we'll try and get you in for a couple of comments later on as we get more clarity as well. But Sriram, what's your sense now? What do you think about the operational viability of Fortis? Because, the liquidity crunch was the biggest issue that they were facing. So do you think that it's probably going to reverse and we're going to see that kind of pressure come through again?
No, I think that liquidity crisis would, if anything, get enhanced. I mean, because IHH will find itself in a stuck. I mean, they wouldn't act on any of the aspects, because even the status of the open offer is unclear. While there is a escrow and the SEBI process envisions banks of funding for the open offer tender. So the problem is that IHH will not be infusing any additional funds, and Fortis can only use whatever funds it generates out of operations. So, and that is the reason why liquidity or working capital itself may be a big issue.
All right, we'll come back to the story. Thanks very much, Mr. Subramanian, for joining us and running us through what you make of the situation. The stock is firmly down about 10.5%. We'll get you more legal voices, opinion, etc. But we'll also try and get a stock analyst to talk about this in terms of will this really, because I mean, as Ashmit said, the argument that they are going to make, most likely Fortis is going to make, is that the company's got nothing to do with the Singh brothers. They don't have a board seat, shareholding, etc. It doesn't impact the function of the company. So why should the deal get struck? So we'll try and flesh out those details. I mean, how much, what is the shareholding in terms of control, who's got operational control with how much shareholding. So, I mean, that'll, I think, allow us to look a little ahead, because right now the sale might be stuck, but is this really a deal breaker the contempt plea by Daiichi, or is this something that can be argued successfully just on the basis of logic of shareholding? So we'll try and do that, and I think stock analysts would be in a position to do that for us as we go along. We're down about 10-11% right now on Fortis. 13 odd points lower on the Nifty. 10,777 is where we stand. We'll keep getting more reactions, and we'll have more for you. Mitesh Thakkar is with us to run us through what he makes of things. Mitesh, thanks very much for your time. Your quick thoughts on the market per se, how we are positioned. I guess all eyes on what happens out of the RBI board meet. So the Nifty gained about 500-600 points in the last 6 trading sessions, and we've got this in a way important event today. So buy the rumor, sell the news type of situation could happen, or you think we'd be okay?
Good morning, Prashant. I think yes, that does keep the markets on tenterhooks, and you were right to highlight that we've had a 500-point kind of rally in the last 3 days, starting from the day of election results. The low was 10,330. So in that sense, I think there could be a breather, but the overall structure, I think, to me appears to be more on the positive side and biased on the upside. So the idea should be to buy any dips. You've had a good run in the last 3 days. Today is a weekend and we have an event coming up, so maybe some lightening of positions could happen. 10,700 to me appears to be the area where buying could be done, though 10,750 being the 200 average has in the last 2 days. Today early in the morning and yesterday also has held out nicely on the intraday charts. But in case you get dips to about 10,700, I would still be comfortable adding on to long positions or buying afresh. And on the upside for a few days, 10,820, 830 could be the ceiling in the short term, but I think eventually that will be crossed and we'll head upwards. So structure is positive, bias is positive, wait for dips to buy.
Okay, what specific trades would you want to recommend at this stage, Mitesh?
Yeah. 2 buy calls. One of them is Biocon, buy with a stop at 644 for targets of 675, and Canara Bank is a buy, keep a stop at 258, look for targets close to about 275.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks very much, Mitesh, for that. So we're down about 15. Just a quick word on Fortis as well, because that is clearly the big story right now. We're still down about 10.25% or so as things stand.